Welcome to the banks of the Shropshire Union Canal. Here today to help give you an introduction to the national celebration of young people and fishing and the Commonwealth Games junior fishing events that we held in 2022. Delighted to be here this morning with one of our leading Let's Fish coaches, Simon. A little bit to tell you about what the national celebration events that we run are all about. I would compare them in many ways with something like the London Marathon. Now 50,000 people enter the London Marathon, which is probably more than will enter the national celebration events. But the principles are similar. A few people will think that they are going to go and their aim is simply to win. Whereas most people are going for a fantastic day out, hopefully to sort of break their personal best and be part of something which is of national significance. And the purpose of this video, with Simon's help, is we're going to show you how to make the very best of your fishing experience when you come along and join us at the national celebration of young people and fishing. So if you've already signed up and decided to take part, that's absolutely great news. If you're pondering it, if you're thinking about taking part, we can help you make the best of the day in 3 different ways. Firstly, to watch this video, because there'll be loads of hints and tips about how to make the very best of the day. Secondly, on the day itself, there'll be a small army of Let's Fish coaches, including some absolutely first-rate match anglers who have got lots of experience. Some of them are even national champions, so you will pick up more little tips and hints on the day. And thirdly, anybody who signs up to one of our national celebration or Commonwealth Games events is automatically entitled to a 2-hour, absolutely free, what we call development angling sessions. And if you would like to book on one of those, you need to email lets.fish@canalrivertrust.org.uk. I do look forward to seeing you on the bank shortly. And now I'm going to hand over to Simon Mottram to tell us about the best approach for when you're next at a national celebration event. So Simon, what's the very first thing you do once you've actually arrived at the place you're going to fish, which we call your fishing peg?
Well, what I always do is put my box where I'm going to be sat, and you notice I'm like near to the edge of the canal. I don't want to be sat right back, you know, because you can get stuck in the grass and stuff like that, and you know, it just makes it easy if you're near the water's edge with that. Yeah. You know, you're not dangerous or anything. It's nice and flat here. Yeah. And what I always do is always set up my landing net. Always taught that from years ago first.
So tell me how to set up a landing net.
Yeah, so I just got my net and it just screws on the end. And I was always taught to do that years ago, because if I ever drop anything in, I can scoop it over the landing net.
That's a very good tip. Yeah. That's our first tip. Yeah. Set your landing net up first.
Up first, yeah.
Yeah, so that if you drop like a float or a disgorger in the water by mistake, Now, just go back to the landing net. Yeah. If this is your first ever celebration event and you don't own a landing net, what type of landing net should you buy? How much do they cost? And how long does the handle need to be?
That's like it's probably 3 meters at handle. Just take apart one. Yeah. But you can get telescopic ones, or you know, everybody's budget and everything. That's got a nice mesh that doesn't get your hook caught in it, a barbed hook caught in it. So, but it's not too big, it's not too small. Yeah. It's just a medium sort of size. And the next thing I do is always put my keep net in, because disturbance-wise, I want to get all the disturbance done early on. So
Silly question, Simon. What's the keep net actually for? And do you have to have one if you're fishing in a match?
You need one on the match, because obviously you put your fish in the net and they get
You say it's obvious, but in my day I used to see kids put fish in buckets, which I guess is not allowed anymore.
No, so you do need a keep net. And most importantly on the canals, it's because you get boats coming through. If we were just to put the net in the edge, and when a boat would come through, it would wash around, and it would especially disturb the close-in part. So what we do, I've got like a cord that goes on the end of the net there.
Yeah.
So it's attached to my box, or you could attach it to a spare...
Supposing you haven't got a box, and box are quite expensive. So if you haven't got that,
I could just attach it to there. It's on a loop, so I could just attach that on that end of the canal. And then if I haven't got an attachment like that, I can just put that bank stick.
So you put a bank stick.
Yeah, screw that onto the net, and then I can just put it into the.
Yeah.
Put it in front of you as well.
So how long does the keep net B2B? If you've never bought a keep net before,
that one's 3 metres. That one.
A 3 metre.
Yeah, that one.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
and that would be plenty long enough.
Plenty long enough. Yeah.
Now some clubs that we work with in Let's Fish, will have spare keep nets that they could actually maybe lend you for the day.
That's it. Yeah.
So one tip, if you don't own a keep net, is to get in touch with your local Let's Fish club, say you'd like to be part of the national celebration, and see if they can lend you a keep net for the day.
Yeah.
Another little tip.
So sorry to interrupt, but we've had a boat go past now.
Yes.
And if that net wasn't attached to that end as well, both ends, it would have washed round in the peg. And it would, it doesn't do the fish.
So that could disturb your 3 metre line.
Yeah, and it's better for the fish that it's staked out. They've got plenty of room to swim up and down in. So that's another good point, to have it staked both ends. Very important to have it pegged out both ends.
Lovely. I'm going to give you 2 more top tips. Yeah, this is John Ellis's top tips.
Cool.
Yeah, real value for money here this morning. Number 1, always check your net to make sure there's no holes in it. Because I've heard many stories of people catching lots of fish. They come to the weigh-in, and most of the fish have escaped through the hole. Now, how disappointed would you be if you didn't check your net? Has that ever happened to you, Simon?
It hasn't, because it's always stuck with me from years ago, like when we were juniors, that always put your landing net up first. And always, when I put my keep net in, even in matches today, I always just turn it round and just check. Because I leave it outside to dry and everything, and you don't know, mice can get it in or whatever.
Second tip. Yes. Yeah. If you're fishing regularly, you must dry your net out. Yeah. So leave it either on the bank once you've weighed in, or take it home and put it on the lawn. It's always good for what we call check, clean and dry reasons to have a dry net. The third little tip here is when your fish are being weighed in at the end, always double check that there's no fish accidentally left in the net.
Definitely.
Because that could make a difference. Obviously it'll make a difference to your weight, but it really isn't fair on a fish if it gets left in a net. Have you ever done that, Simon?
Odd times, not many times. I always have a check. They're hard enough to catch in the first place without leaving them in your net.
Exactly.
But I think on the celebration day, we'll actually weigh the fish in for everybody, like we did last year, and it worked really well, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll do that.
Even so, even a steward is human.
Definitely, yeah.
So it's still worth checking that net.
Yeah.
I'm now going to explain our thinking behind one of the rules in our national celebration events, and that's the 3 metre rule, which for 2021 will apply for the first 90 minutes of both the cadet section and the junior section. And the reason we have introduced this rule is to make the event fairer for people who have maybe not fished much before. It makes it relatively cheap because the equipment you need is only a short take-apart pole. And the third reason is there's actually an awful lot of fish to be caught close to the near side bank on most canals. Species like perch, roach, gudgeon, and possibly even bonus skimmers can all be caught close in on the 3 metre line. And to explain exactly what we mean by the 3 metre line, Simon, I'm going to hand over to you.
Yeah, so as you were saying, like the first year we did it, we didn't have that 3 metre or 4 metre rule. And what we found is a lot of the kids were using longer poles than they could manage because some were only small.
There's a top tip. Don't ever fish with a pole that is too long for you to comfortably manage.
And you could see that some weren't enjoying it, and what we'd found when we'd been doing our Let's Fish events, where we just fished close in, we found that more fish were being caught by just fishing close in, because bait wasn't getting spread all over the canal, and it was just more manageable. So last year we did it as 4 metres, but we found that even that was a little bit too far out in the way of the boats and stuff.
And some people were trying to fish 4 metres to hand. Very noticeable that their bait presentation wasn't right. The wind was catching the rig, and I think that did more harm to their fishing than good.
Yeah, like even we've got the 3 metre thing. You don't presume that you've got to use 3 metres of line. Like what we've found with like my top kits are quite long on this, so what it probably would be on most poles a bit short to fish a top kit. So what I've done is I've just measured 3 metres on there. So I'm using halfway down my neck section.
Yes.
So it's not a problem having that behind you.
So that piece of pole there, so this pole is about 3.5 metres or something.
Well, nearly 4.
Nearly 4.
Getting on, probably.
Yeah.
And that's at 3 metres.
Lovely.
But obviously, you know, it's not a really strict day and everything like that. So that's why I've just put that there, so I know where 3 metres
So that's your 3 metres.
Yeah.
So really what we're measuring, is from the water's edge here,
that's
3 metres out.
Yeah, that's it.
And you can quite fairly have this length of pole.
Yeah, not a problem.
Behind you.
Yeah, not a problem at all. And it'll rather than, you know, if I was to use just a top kit and I was leaning forward and stretching, certainly if it was windy, it would be awkward to present the rig nicely.
Yeah.
So having that bit of pole behind you is not a problem. And as well, when you hook a big fish, if you do, you've got something to follow it out with.
Now, just to explain, if somebody does hook a big fish, and they need to put an extra section or 2 poles a section
not a problem
on
at all.
to land a fish, that's perfectly within the rule.
It's not the rule that we put in. It's not about clamping down on people. It's trying to make it more enjoyable for people. So what we've found is everybody seems to be more happy, especially because some of it's their first ever match, isn't it? And it's quite daunting if they're next pegged to somebody who's got like an 11-metre pole and they've got all the gear and everything. So if they're nervous at the beginning of the match, which they mostly are, aren't they, on the first match?
Yes.
It's just nice that when they're looking up, everybody's fishing close in, so it just settles them down and settles them in.
And they think, actually, you know what?
Yeah.
My first match or whatever, my first celebration, and I'm doing just as well as everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's going to give them a lot of confidence.
Yeah,
because fishing is about confidence at the end of the day.
So what we found is the first year we brought it in, more fish were actually caught overall. So this year we're thinking 3 metres because it's a bit closer in. So what we found with 4 metres, if you mention 4 metres, a lot of people tended to, I must fish 4 metres, which was a little bit too far out.
Yeah.
So we're thinking with 3, it's a bit more down the middle sort of thing. So it's this side of the boat track as well. Brilliant. So it's out of the way of the boats.
Yeah. And one last thing, Simon, the rig you're using isn't 3 metres long.
No. Well, that's 3 metres there, so it's
just over 2, is it?
Yeah, just over 2. So I wouldn't. It's not very deep. Most pegs on this canal aren't very deep, so I don't really want 3 metres of line blowing around everywhere. So I've made it a little bit longer, just in case it was a bit deep, and I've just trimmed it back a bit. Lovely. But we can go into the rigs afterwards, and in detail we'll show you the rigs. So
brilliant.
Right, I just want to go into quickly about what rigs to use and everything on the day, especially if you've not been on the canals before. It's quite important that you have elastic in the end of the pole. I've just got a soft elastic through one section. All that means is if you hook a decent fish on the day, which is a good chance you will, that elastic, if that was just tied to the end on a flick tip, there's no giving it at all. But because that's a nice soft elastic, a number 3 elastic, there's lots of give in it, and the fish isn't going to be splashing around on the top or breaking your line or anything like that. It just gives you more chance. But if you're unsure how to do that, any tackle shop will be able to elasticate your pole for you, and you just want like a number 2, 3 or 4, something nice and forgiving, nice and soft. I've just got just a standard float there. That's a Drennan SF2 float in 0.3 grams or some floats you might find. I've got 4x12, 4x14, 4x16. Like a 4x14 size is quite a nice size. And you notice I've got a thin line there. That's like a 2-pound main line, that is. It's a bulk of stots and 2 smaller stots. And probably the most important part of the rig is the hook length. If you've got the right rig but the wrong hook length, you know, you're going to struggle. So it's quite easy now. Preston have brought these out. These hook lengths are all ready to go. Those hook lengths would be absolutely perfect for using on the celebration day. They're all ready tied, like a nice size 20 there to a £1.5, £1.4 hook length line, so that you can just loop to loop connection on there onto your rig. So they're perfect. So they've only, like a lot of hook lengths that you found in the past, hooks to nylon that were tied, they were too long, but these are perfect size. If you can't, you know, Preston do them, Hydra do one now as well. That's nice and short, nice fine hook. So either one of those two, but those Preston ones, they're really bang on for the job, they are. So, and we've got, we'll put a link up how to, if you do want to make some rigs at home and what floats to use and everything, we'll put a link up and attached to this video, and you can go back and watch that. But if you do need any info, just get in touch with the Canal and River Trust, and we can certainly tell you what stuff to get.
In this next section, we're going to explain what we mean by plumbing the depth and show you exactly how to do it. So the first question is, Simon, what do we need to actually bother to plumb the depth for?
Well, we always need to find out how deep it is, because when we put our bait in, the bait goes to the bottom, and a lot of the fish on here, like gudgeon and roach and perch, they feed on the bottom.
So you need to have your bait on the bottom?
Yeah, so we need to find out how deep it is.
Okay, so what do we use for that?
Yeah, we've got a plummet.
Yeah.
Just a plummet on the line. Quite a light plummet, that one, 15 grams. Again, with the theme of balancing it, if I was to use a really heavy plummet, you know, it's going to be sinking in the silt, stretching the thin line, and we're going to have lots of elastic coming out. So it's just all in balance again. If I was using a heavier rig with heavy elastic, I'd perhaps use a heavier plummet, slightly.
Yes.
But it's just all in balance with that theme of light and balanced tackle.
Lovely. And your hook, you put your hook in the...
Yeah, I just put it through the eye on the top, like that.
Yeah, so you don't hook the eye?
Not hook the eye, like my brother's lad used to do that. He used to hook the eye.
And then it came off?
Yeah, so every time he plumbed up, every chuck, he was losing a plummet.
Oh, blimey.
Yeah.
And he never did find the depth of the canal?
No, he didn't, no.
So they don't do that? So
no, because he'd used all my plummets that day. So,
okay.
So we just hook the eye like that, bring it, this has got cork in the bottom of this one.
Yeah.
And we just hook the cork on the bottom, press the hook in.
Lovely.
Like that, so it's on the line like that.
Brilliant.
And what we do, because we're not going to fish really close in. Obviously on the day, it's too shallow there, and there'll be quite a lot of disturbance.
Yes.
Like another point for on the day, any mums and dads that want to watch, it's always best to bring a chair and sit slightly upstream behind.
Yes.
So you're not sort of towering over. And everybody's peg on the day, the flow will go that way to the left.
So that way you mean from the right
to the left.
To the left.
Yeah. So it's best to sit slightly upstream.
So the parents need to sit 2 or 3 metres upstream to the right of their offspring.
That's right.
And as close to the hedge as they can to reduce disturbance.
Yeah. So certainly in September the water might be getting a little bit clearer, so fishing too close in, you probably wouldn't catch there for long. So we're going to fish about 3 metres out, so we're going to see how it plums up.
Yes, on the 3 metre line.
Where it's slightly deepened. What I've done, I put a bit of tape there.
Yeah.
So rather than put a mark on with Tipp-Ex that I can't feel, and I'm looking for it, I put a bit of tape that I can feel where it is without really looking.
And your float's gone under now?
Yeah, so we can just demonstrate. When we plumb up closer and it's shallower, and the further we go out, the deeper it gets. Obviously, it shallows up the other side of the canal again.
And the deepest is generally in the middle?
In the middle, yeah. But by fishing here, we're out of the way of the boats. If we were to fish, that's why we brought that rule in. Like last year when people were fishing 4 metres out, it was in the way of the boats.
Yes.
And you notice I've just moved the float up a little bit deeper there.
Yes.
And incidentally, that stem on there is that bendy wire stem, so I can do that without bending the float out of place.
I've just noticed you've got 2 float rubbers.
Yeah. That's just to keep it. If I just had the one on there, there'd be a great big gap there, and it doesn't sit on the line right. So we've just got 2. You can even put 3 on if you want to.
Lovely.
So we'll just try that now. So just to demonstrate, that'll be too deep for close in. But if I move out to that spot there, it'll just get a little bit deeper, it will, I would think. Yeah, so we're still too shallow because we can't see the float.
Your float's disappeared totally under the water.
And I'm not just plonking the rig down, I'm lowering it in so I can feel it hitting the bottom.
Ah, that's a good tip.
So I'm not
Lower
just letting
it in
go
slowly.
slack. Yeah, so I'm just lowering it in there like that. And see, we're getting there now. We're getting
so you
towards...
can just see the tip there.
We still want to come up because when the rig's in place, it's never ever dead straight like that. Without that plummet on, it's never ever going to be dead tight and straight. So always plumb up to the bottom of the body.
There's a tip. Always plumb up
to
the bottom of the body, not to the tip of the float.
Yeah. So but take your time doing this. There's no rush.
And you can do this before the start of the match.
Definitely, yeah. You need to do this before the start.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can do it with a spare rig or even 2 spare rigs before the start of the match.
If you've only got the one, you've only got one spare elasticated section, there's nothing to stop you getting 2 or 3 of these spare ones, because if you do tangle any, you can always just put another one on ready to go then.
Yes.
So you
have them on your pole winder ready to go.
you can put them on your pole winders.
Yeah.
So you can store your rigs, they're ready to go like that. So I could take that off that winder, put a hook on, plumb it up ready and store it back on.
That's a good time-saving tip.
Yeah, definitely. And you notice I'm plumbing slightly to the left. It's always best to fish slightly downstream.
Just ever so slightly downstream.
It's a bit like a river. If we were to plumb upstream and it's winding, stuff like that, we're constantly we're stretching. But by fishing slightly downstream, it's the right place to fish.
So there's another top tip.
And when I say really down, I don't mean like really downstream, just slightly. If you're looking at a clock face, probably 11 o'clock sort of position.
Yeah, 11 o'clock to 11:30.
Yeah, so there we go. So it's just slightly to the left, not a lot though. And that there, I know when I'm holding that tape there, the bottom of the body of the float sticking out. If I was to come back too far this way, some of the shots would be resting on the bottom because it's sticking out too far.
Yes.
So you'd know if you're fishing too close in because your float would probably be sticking out too much.
Got you.
So just plumb up slightly down. So there. So I know if I'm holding that tape there and I'm not stretching out the way or anything, I'm perfect there. Lovely. Incidentally, if I had too much line between the tip and the float, it would be hard to control the rig. So I've got there, what's that, John? 3 foot, 3.5 foot, is it?
3.5 foot.
Yeah, which is a nice sort of, you'll get less tangles that way as well.
Yeah. Top tip. We often see kids with very short lengths of line between their pole tip and the float.
Yeah.
And that is not best practice.
Not for canals. It's obviously different on commercials, isn't it? Where you're fishing like up to islands and stuff like that, where you're very short lines and there's no flow as such. But it's always best, even on my own fishing, I have quite a long line. I get less tangles that way, and it can trot it further down as well. A bit like you would on rivers. So. Another
top tip: always bring a spare plummet. I find that one of the things that you can't find, it's easy to lose them in the grass. I've done that before now, so I would always invest in a spare plummet. They're only a few pence, definitely worth having. Next thing I'd like to talk about, Simon, is what baits are you going to recommend that people bring to a national celebration event?
Okay, probably the most important ones, and you can get from most shops, are pinkies. That's what we generally use on the hook a lot of the time.
And how many pinkies would you buy, and what colours of pinkies?
I like a mixture. I like those red and fluoros, as we call it. See the orange ones?
Yeah.
They're like a fluorescent colour, so we call those fluoros.
Yeah.
I'd probably buy about half a pint, really.
Half a pint?
Yeah, which is like.
And what do you keep them in?
£1.50 or something. I keep them in the fridge. I've got a spare bait fridge. But obviously, if you haven't got that, the luxury of having a spare fridge, keep them on the garage floor where it's a bit cooler.
And in a box?
In a box, and if you're coming on the celebration weekend, it's probably best to get them on the Friday. That way, if you haven't got somewhere cool to keep them as such,
they won't have turned.
They won't get too warm, and they're likely to be fresher on the Friday because a lot of the shops get their fresh delivery on a Thursday. So we've got the pinkies.
So half a pint of pinkies.
Half a pint of pinkies.
What else?
Yeah, I've got some. I know a lot of people, they can't always get squats. If you can, squats are very good to bring as well.
Yes.
Again, not a lot. You probably
half a pint again.
Yeah, half a pint of pinkies to be half a pint of squats. Yeah. You won't need a lot.
Yeah.
They're a nice bait to feed.
Yes.
And sometimes when we've caught a few fish on a pinky and it gets a bit tougher, we put a squat on the hook and we can get another nice little run of fish.
Lovely.
Yeah.
That's a top tip, actually.
Yeah. So always start on pinkies.
Yes.
And then go on to squats. But if you can't, I know some places they can't always get squats.
It's not the end of the world.
Not the end of the world at all. So you can just bring some pinkies and that'll be fine. Like yeah.
Any other baits?
I'd probably bring a few worms with me as well.
Yes.
Because there is a chance of catching some perch. You know, we'll demonstrate it a bit later on. We could set up a rig with a bit stronger hook and a bit thicker line, because there is some, you know, if it's all you know, if you're not catching any small fish or it's all dried up, there's nothing wrong with putting a few worms in and trying to catch a big perch over the top, or a bream. Yeah. So a few worms, just a few.
Lovely.
And that's you can get from most shops, to be fair. Like,
lovely.
So,
Yes. Or you might have a compost heap at home if you're really lucky. Even better.
Yeah.
Are there baits which are not allowed on most canals, which you shouldn't bring to the national celebration?
A lot of the canals around here, I know on this stretch, you're not allowed any fish meal or pellets as such. But to be fair, using those sort of baits around here, you know, we're targeting the roach, the gudgeon and the smaller fish, and that it's not a bait I would bring anyway, even if they were allowed, to be fair. Like.
And boilies?
Boilies, no.
Sweet corn?
No, it's all aimed at trying to catch, getting more bites.
Yeah.
So sweet corn and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a bait that we tend to bring on the matches.
And are actually not allowed in the national celebration rules.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Right, Simon. The next thing I'd like to discuss with you is ground bait. What's it for, and what type would you recommend you use on the canal?
Okay. Obviously, we're fishing on that 3 metre line. So, but when we get to the canal, all the fish aren't where we want them. They're not all waiting for us on that 3 metre line. Some could be that way, some are over there, some are to the left and the right. So we need to set a dinner table from a target area where we want to fish over. So if we were to just put our bait on and it wouldn't attract them in. So we need some, like a dinner table there to attract them into our area. So what we do, there's loads of different ground baits you can get. If you're not careful in the shops, you'd get like a pellet mix or fish meal mix, which you don't really want for canals around here, especially because we're targeting roach and gudgeon, perch, so they're not really into fish meal, those sort of fish. So I've just got Sensor's Lake and some Sensor's Canal mixed together.
Now tell me this, Simon. I notice you've opened them upside down.
Yeah.
Do you think that makes any difference, or is that? So for those of you who can't read upside down, it's Sensor's.
That's it. Sensor's Lake.
It's Sensor's Lake. Yeah. Sensor's Lake.
And Sensor's Canal.
And Sensor's Canal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, I think that means, does that mean black?
Dark, I think.
Dark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've just mixed it just so it's nice and damp so I can form a ball. And incidentally, when we were talking about forming balls of ground bait, it's best to form them as you need them. Because I have seen in the past some of the less experienced ones have got the balls of ground bait ready.
Already, and then they dry out.
And they dry out, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you make your ground bait on the bank?
I mix mine at home because it's one less thing to do, and it could be pouring down with rain when we get to the canal. So it's just one less thing to do. So I just get up a little bit earlier and mix it at home. That way, if I do mess it up and get it wrong, I've always got some. I can always got some more in the garage that I can bring with me.
Now notice you're not actually going to use that. You haven't got that much there.
No.
So one tip may be for all of the team members to club together and mix enough for 3 or 4 of you.
Yeah, I think there's probably only a couple of pints of ground bait there, and obviously it swells up, so I've not used not a lot at all.
So one bag of ground bait would certainly last 2 or 3 or 4 sessions.
Yeah, definitely, yeah, because as you'll see as we go along, we're not going to be feeding, we don't need to feed lots and lots of stuff. So we're just obviously aiming at ticking over on a few bites.
Yeah.
So that's just a fine consistency there. It's not too dry that you can't squeeze it.
Smells nice too. I
Yeah.
always like the smell of ground bait.
It's not too dry that you can't squeeze it together, but it's just firm enough that I can form a ball easier on that. So, yeah.
One little tip I'd just like to end this section with. At the end of the match, please take any ground bait or unused bait home with you. Do not throw it onto the towing path. Thank you.
Right, it's important that we use some ground bait when we're fishing. You wouldn't want to be not putting any ground bait in. So, as we were saying before, it's non-fish meal ground bait that we need. So, for today, we've just got some leg, and we don't need a lot of it, to be fair. I've only got like, not even a pint there of leg. And the same with that, it's Canal fine, that one is. So the same with Canal. And mix the two. Like I say, I get up early in the morning and do this at home. Just find it one less thing to worry about doing it on the bank. And I know if I mess it up, I can get some more and start again with it. So just a little bit of water at a time. If you flood it all and it gets too wet, it can not come back round. So just a bit at a time. If you were to chuck a load of water all in one go, it might saturate and get too wet. So just a bit there, and it will dry out as well. Another good thing about doing it at home, it will dry out and soak all the water up. So what that'll do, eventually that'll all soak up, and eventually it'll dry out a little bit. And what we'll do, perhaps pass it through a riddle or a sieve. You haven't got to do that, but it gets a lot of air into it and everything like that. And then eventually what you'll do, you'll get it all nice and fine like that there. So that's probably a little bit too much water in at the moment, but it will dry out a touch. 10 or 15 minutes time, I'll go back to it, and it's probably just right. I might need to add a little bit more water to it, but it'll be fine to use then. So we always mix some water. I have seen people just bring ground bait dry and not put any water to it, but you just want to mix a bit of water at a time with your ground bait.
So we're actually going to start fishing. Now, if you've never fished a national celebration event before, or the Commonwealth Games event, the first thing to point out, it is an obvious thing, that you mustn't actually start fishing until you hear either the whistle or a shout, which will be something like all in. And at that moment, that's when you can actually start fishing and feeding the peg. So Simon, is there anything you can do to prepare, looking at your watch, knowing there's, say, 30 seconds to go?
Yeah, I just get a couple of balls ready-made like that. And we're not going to put a lot of bait in.
So it's the first thing you're going to do is put ground bait in?
Yeah, I wouldn't fish any of the swims without any ground bait because, purely because we need to get the fish in that area. And obviously on that celebration thing, we can't feed past 3 metres either, can we?
No, you can't feed past 3 metres for the first 90 minutes.
So purely, it's all going to be fishing close, feeding and fishing close in for the first 90 minutes.
Okay, so show me how you feed as soon as you hear the start.
So we've heard the whistle, or if you haven't got a pole pot, if you are limited, you've only got the one top kit. There's nothing wrong at all by, if you're a good thrower as well, by just lining up and throwing a couple of balls in, at, where your pole tip is. But I'm lucky I've got a pole pot there on a spare kit. But I say, don't worry if you haven't. We can.
You could put your float in and try and hit your float.
Of course you could, yeah, not a problem. So, and we're fishing on that slightly downstream bit. So again, to my tape mark that I've got, and we're just putting 2 little balls in. We're not putting a lot of bait in.
And I've noticed there that Simon looked to check to see if a boat was coming. Because if a boat was about to come through your peg, you'd perhaps wait until it was gone.
If there's a boat like right on you, like it's a couple of pegs away, or even I look up and there's 1 3 peg, I would wait, because the last thing we want to do is feed and a boat comes over and washes all the feed where we are. So we're just on that. Just put 2 little balls in, the size of like small eggs, aren't they, I suppose?
They are, small eggs, exactly right. A medium-sized egg at the biggest. Yeah.
And we'll go down the theme today. We've got squats and pinkies with us, but obviously some people haven't got squats and pinkies. You know, they've got pinkies. So
show us how to feed both, actually, Simon.
Okay. And I'll just feed a pinch, only a pinch. Like I've probably got eight or nine squats there.
Yeah.
Just those there. Yeah. And if we want to demonstrate the pinkies feeding as well, just 2 or 3 pinkies. Yeah. But nothing, you know, not a lot of bait.
Now it's easier for young people to learn to throw pinkies than it is squats.
It is,
because they're heavier.
Yeah.
And the accuracy of the feeding.
Yeah.
Does it matter, or is it?
Very important. It's important that you've got to feed where you're. You know, there's no point in me feeding miles past my float. Yeah. But we're just going to drop in.
And so you've put a pinky on the hook.
Put a pinky on the hook. Yeah. Always starting a pinky.
Yeah.
Like that. Always gets a quick response.
Yeah.
And we've just like that tape again. Very important. I can remember where we put our ground bait then.
Yeah.
So I'm just when I'm popping the rig in, I'm not just chucking it in so it could tangle. I'm swinging it so the bait goes to the left and the float's to the right. It's a bit like a pendulum. And so I put the float in slightly to the right of the ground bait and I'm trotting over the ground bait where we put it in. So, and I know I'm on that tape mark there. But not a lot of bait though. Not, you know, we're not putting loads and loads of bait in.
When you're hooking the pinky.
Yep.
Yeah, which end of the pinky do you put the
use
hook through?
The blunt end, not the thin end.
Yeah, the thick end, the blunt end.
So I know my ground bait there, it's all on that little spot there.
Yeah.
So I'm knowing when I'm going past my ground bait, it's not so much chance of, there's a bite there, just.
So your float just little dip?
Just dipped, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's quite low, that float. I'd have it even a bit lower myself, but everybody can see it that way now. So when it gets past the ground bait and everything,
yeah, you put it back in,
a bit like a river, trotting down and everything like that.
Yeah. So that's a really important tip.
Yeah.
Don't leave your bait in for too long.
Yeah.
Certainly no more than a minute.
Yeah, a lot of the time when you could leave your float in there for ages, you've not had a bite, and you pick the whole rig up and put it back in again, and it's almost as if they watch it and they snap at it. Especially early on, do you know what I mean? And we're not feeding them a lot. I'm just going to feed just a couple of pinkies.
Yeah.
Not a lot at all, just enough to tempt a bite. So that's that spot where the ground bait was. So this area now, I'm thinking, there's a good chance of getting a bite there now.
Always important to keep your eyes firmly on the float, isn't it, Simon?
Yeah, so just lifted it out again, put it back in.
Don't get distracted by what other people are doing, what your mum or dad are doing, sitting to your right, what the birds are doing in the trees. Although it can be nice just to...
and obviously I've got that little bit of pole behind me, it balances it up and that's nice, so I'm not stretching out or anything. It can take a bit of getting going sometimes because we've got obviously a lot of disturbance on the bank and everything like that, so it can just take a little bit. Oh, there's a bite there. Oh, missed that one.
Yeah.
Just check the bait's okay.
That's always a good tip.
Yeah, slightly damaged, so it's best just change that bait.
So if your maggot's been chewed, or the pinky's been chewed, or the squat's been chewed, you would always change it.
Definitely, yeah. And even when you miss a bite, it's always important to look, when you lift your rig out, is just to look if, if you're in doubt, bring it in and change it, to be honest.
Now, I guess everybody misses bites, so you don't worry if you've missed a bite.
No, not at all.
You put it behind you and
so we're just going to feed a couple of pinkies again over that ground bait. So I'm not leaving it in long. When it's difficult, like it is early on now, I'm popping it in and out all the time. So I put it right on top of the ground bait there. Sometimes you can put your rig right on the ground bait, or sometimes it's just a bit of experimenting. You need to... Have we had a fish then? Like right on the ground bait, look. Little gudgeon.
There's fish.
Yeah, little gudgeon.
Good gudgeon.
And I think on the day, don't they receive some sort of award or something?
That's a really good point. Everybody on the 2021 National Celebration who lands a gudgeon will receive a voucher, and that will entitle them to collect their free Grand Union Gobio Society coffee mug. So you've won a mug, Motty.
Yeah.
Some people would say you are a mug.
Yeah, definitely,
I couldn't possibly comment about that.
Lots of people say that, John. So it was interesting then. We hadn't had a bite, and we lifted it and put it back in again, and I had an instant bite. So I'm sure if I'd have left it there, we wouldn't have caught that fish. There's another bite, look.
And notice the elastic just coming out.
Nice and soft, isn't it? If that was a flick tip, that fish could have been splashing about and stuff like that.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Another gudgeon.
Nice little gudgeon again.
It's a better size gudgeon. So just how do you put it in the net, Simon?
Just
nice
carefully,
and slowly.
just drop it in there.
Lovely.
And as well, that's why I've got my keep net right in front of me. So if I swing it in and the fish does drop off, it, you know,
sometimes it might be you might be
drop
lucky.
in the net. Yeah. But I don't know if you noticed, John, all the fish are right by the ground bait.
I did notice that, actually.
It's a common thing is when I've walked along, I've always said, where have you put your ground bait? And they've told me, like, and you've got to be fishing right where your feed is on these canals a lot of the time. Yeah. So it's always best, and I'm in control of the rig. It's slightly to the left downstream. So even if the wind starts blowing in that, it's a bit like a river. I can keep me line behind the float. So I'm thinking we've had our bites, you know, where the ground bait was, so I'm going to lift him out again.
Yeah. Will you feed again?
No. I put a couple of pinkies in there, so but we're feeding minimal amounts. There's no big handfuls of bait or anything like that. It's just
very noticeable.
Very minimal sorts of stuff. So it's not, again, look at that. Just had a bite just on there, look.
Is it a roach
little
this time?
roach, yeah. Nice little roach. Yeah. Yeah, nice little fish.
Lovely.
There, yeah.
Very happy.
Yeah. And incidentally, if you're not used to using barbed hooks, there's nothing wrong with crushing a barb down with some pliers, like some little pliers there. You know, if you're struggling to unhook the fish, just squash the barb down to make it barbless.
That's a good little tip.
Yeah. But I say there's plenty of help on the day. If you are struggling, just shout. There's not going to be anybody far away, is there, John? So
no, there isn't. There's plenty of Let's Fish coaches, and they will be wearing their Let's Fish coaches tabard so you can identify them.
Yeah, and obviously it's not a massively serious competition aspect of it. It's all about helping each other, and
it's a friendly national celebration.
Definitely. So
we want everybody to come along, have a good day.
Yeah.
I'm going to set everybody a challenge in a few minutes, and it's going to be called the "Can You Catch More Than the World Champion Did" challenge. So worth hanging on and watching this video for a little longer, and we'll come back to the "Can You Catch More Than the World Champion" challenge. Simon, next time you get a bite, can you illustrate the correct way to strike?
That's a one, look.
Now I've noticed this is a bigger fish. Are you going to use the landing net?
Yeah, always will do. Fish like this, it's best to. And that soft elastic, I was able to glide it out of the peg. So
why do you want to glide it out of the peg?
I don't want to be splashing the fish around right where we're fishing.
Why not?
It'll disturb the others. So I did just put the net away like that. And that one stuck it quite far down, that one. So we just
you have to use a disgorger.
Yeah, put that on the line.
Tip.
There we go. Nice little hybrid.
That's lovely. That must weigh what, 2 ounces?
More than that, I think.
More than that?
More than that, yeah. Yeah,
lovely.
Probably 4 or 5 ounces even, that one. Yeah, which is a great, and again there was no splashing, and that elastic, it really sort of cushioned everything. So if we'd have had a flick tip on there attached to the end, it would have been splashing around everywhere and might have even come off. But you're saying about striking, weren't you, John?
Yes, because I've seen people probably not striking correctly. So
so just a little firm lift, nothing too severe. Yeah, so I'll try and demonstrate on the next bite I get. So not too hard, but not just, not sort of yanking it sort of thing, but so just a firm, there we go, look. Oh, missed that one.
Missed that bite?
Yeah. So check the bait.
Check the bait?
Yeah.
Is it damaged?
Yeah, slightly damaged, so that can be a real common mistake, people not checking the baits. So again, and I bet you can notice, John, all the bites are right where that ground bait was.
I have noticed that.
Yeah.
Another top tip, is always be friendly to fellow canal users. I'm going to wave to these happy, friendly boaters. How you doing? Nice to see you. We're having a great day. I hope you're having a great day. Quite a few. I haven't, but this man here has. Yes. And note the boat has kept at a steady speed down the centre of the canal, which is absolutely perfect behaviour and has caused no damage or disturbance to Simon's peg. let's hope that everybody does that
Yeah.
on the National Celebration Day.
See, regarding there's a fish already there. Look, regarding ground bait,
Yes.
obviously when a boat comes past early on the session like that, sometimes it's best to put another ball in just to regroup the fish again. But obviously, just wait until the water calms down. There's no point putting it in when it's all swirling around everywhere. So just sometimes you don't have to, because believe it or not, even when the boats are going across it, they're not.
Hi, how you doing?
They're not moving the ground
Lovely
bait.
day,
as much
isn't
as you
it?
think.
Not bad.
Could be better.
Could be a bit sunnier, but we're out on the canal. You can't beat it.
Yeah, so it's best just to let it calm down before. Sometimes you might not need a ball. You might not need to regroup them, especially later on. But early on, sometimes you do need to put another little ball of ground bait in.
Yeah.
But those boats have really left us alone there. They've not really affected that spot that we're in.
Which was another reason why we changed the 4 metre rule to the 3 metre rule.
It was a bit far out, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
And have you got a piece of weed on the line there, Simon?
Yeah, always checking on that, because there's always bits of stuff floating
Do you
about.
ever catch a fish if you've got a piece of weed on the line?
No.
So there's a tip.
No.
Always make sure you've got no debris on your hook bait, or even slime from a skimmer bream.
Yeah, that's it.
You don't seem to get bites
No.
when we have that.
So that ground bait hasn't, I can still see it fizzing in that area, so it hasn't really, the boats, believe it or not, they haven't really made it move or anything like that. So I think the boats affect us a lot more sometimes than it does the canal. So we've not had a bite, so we're mindful about leaving it in there too long without a bite. And just a couple of pinkies in again.
Yeah. Or you could put half a dozen squats.
Yeah, but we're not putting lots of bait in, 2s and 3 pinkies and stuff like that, and certainly no more ground bait yet. But if I've not had another bite in the next 10 minutes, I'll perhaps put another little ball of ground bait in just to regroup
Did the float
everything.
rise up, or did you?
That was me, yeah. That was
you
me.
lifted that.
Yeah.
And are you trying to tempt a fish into
just sometimes,
biting like that?
But I know that's the area there where that ground bait is.
Yeah.
So once I'm going past that area, and I know most of the bites came in that little spot, I'm thinking drop it back in.
Drop it back in,
Yeah.
It's quite hard work, this fishing.
And it's set quite low, that float as well, so we're seeing all the delicate little bites. It's shotted down to the tip, it's not the body sticking out or anything like that.
And that's another common mistake that we see, is always have your float quite well dotted down close to the surface of the water, not sticking up in the air like a lighthouse. If the bites are very slow, are there any tips you could give to participants to, to try and get a few more bites?
Well, if it's really slow bite, we can start putting squats on the hook.
Yeah.
You've got that route, or you can, people that have got a bit more stuff, they can have a lighter rig that's got. Notice that one took it on the drop. That we can have a lighter rig. Or spread these shots out so it's a bit more slower for you.
Out, so the bait falls more slowly
more naturally,
through the water.
Yeah.
There's a good tip. How about changing down hook size from a 20?
Yeah, you could go to, if you've got
to
some.
a 22.
Yeah, certainly, it's 20 is a good size really, you know what I mean? But if you've got some 22s, there's nothing wrong with trying one of those.
And what about changing the colour of the pinky from a fluoro one to a red
try
one
all those
or
things.
orange one?
You'll probably find that a fluoro pinky is sometimes better than a red, or the other way around. So just try all the different things. A lot of the times you can be sat there with a fluoro one, not getting a bite. You put a red one on, you get a bite straight away.
And no 2 days you
no,
the same.
It's never
you
the
can't
same.
tell?
No. So we're mindful that a couple of boats have gone over the line, but. And if the bites don't really quicken up, we could perhaps plop another little ball of ground bait in. But I'm not leaving it in there long. If you notice now, the flow has gone to the right, which is the opposite way to the natural way.
I've just
I think
noticed
it's because we've had a couple of boats rock back into.
Do you think it's harder to catch a fish?
Definitely, yeah.
When the flow's going the wrong way?
Yeah, it's always easier to catch when it goes the right way.
So there's a tip. Don't worry. If the flow's going the wrong way and you're not getting bites, it'll be the same for everybody else as well.
It will be, yeah.
So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just wait until the flow goes the right way, which it's now started to do. And right on camera, Simon's float is going to go under and he's going to land a fish. But if he doesn't,
yeah,
he'll put the rig back in again.
There's another boat coming, so I'm thinking, right, you know, I won't put any more ground bait until that boat's gone past, I don't think. We've just had a spell lately where there's been a lot of boats all in one go. Oh, a bite then.
It's quite a shy bite, and
yeah,
you waited.
Be a roach again. Yeah, nice roach.
What have we had now, Simon? About 8 or 10 fish?
Something like that, I think. Yeah, nice little roach. Yeah.
And after,
and always change that bait as well. Change the bait when you've had a fish on. So we're ticking over quite nicely, to be fair, like.
Yes. So I think.
So we're just lowering that rig in there. It's not going in a heap or anything like that.
10 or 12 fish per hour.
Yeah.
For somebody who is at that first time at the national celebration, I think would be a very, very creditable performance.
So just take that one off then. Probably should net that one really, but we're okay on that.
Yeah. That was what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
You could have netted it.
Yeah, could have done. Yeah. But we got that nice soft elastic, haven't we? You know, it's glided out the peg. It wasn't splashing about where we were fishing.
Yeah.
And how simple is this, John? We've just got 2 sections of pole, haven't we?
Yeah. And then the third one that you put on.
Yeah. We're just fishing nice and simple. We're not feeding bait all over the canal and chopping worms up and all sorts.
No, we're keeping it nice and simple.
Very simple, yeah. Yeah.
Feeding little, but often.
Just tiny amounts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And fishing accurately over where your ground bait is.
It's a common thing we saw, John, wasn't it? On the first year we did it, everything was very complicated, wasn't it? You know, we only need to fish close in. You know, we'll catch a lot more fish. Whoops, it's come off that one.
That one's come off?
That one's come off.
Anything you did wrong there, Simon? Or just
probably, yeah. So it's damaged the bait, really, that one.
Yes. If you're getting damaged bait, that's an encouraging sign that the fish are
some bites
confident.
Yeah.
But you don't let it worry you.
Yeah.
Get back in again.
And we got that line, it's not too long, so, you know, if it was a windy day and I've got the line that was too long, it'd be awkward.
Not too long and it's not too short.
No, that's right, yeah.
It's just right.
And all the bites are right on over that ground bait where we... So just had a look at that pink, I could see that it was fine.
Yeah.
And the good thing about fishing close in like that, you're out of the way of the boats a lot of the time. The boats don't tend to come too near to you. A lot of fish there, John, isn't there? It's just nice.
Right, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very nice. Needed disgorger for that
Yeah,
one.
that one. So they're feeding well, which is a good sign, isn't it?
There's a top tip.
Yeah.
The disgorger, easy to drop them into the grass and lose them or into the canal. So I would always have about 3 or 4.
Definitely.
Just in case. And a nice bright colour so you can always find it nice and easily. Again, this boat's behaving themselves very well. Steady speed down the centre of the canal.
Like it's got
I always think it's a good thing to say good morning or good afternoon, to wave at the boaters.
Hello.
Lovely day. Yeah.
So if we were fishing a bit too far out, we'd have been it would have disturbed us there. So I think we'll probably get away with that one even as well. Like we're not too. We're on this side of that disturbance, so. But we can all, you know, if we're getting quite a few bites now.
Yeah.
But if it dries up, we can always plop another little ball in. But we're not, you know, we've not put loads and loads of bait in, have we? We're just ticking over nicely. And there was one lad last year, he came and he caught like 50 fish. But the first year he caught 10, and then 20 the second, so he's going in the right way. And he said every year he comes, he always learns something, do you know what I mean? So.
Well, that's the thing about fishing. It's a real educational sport. And you never stop learning. Even people that have fished for as long as you have, Simon, which must be 40 years now, still learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things you're not doing, Simon, is overstretching and leaning out into the canal, because we do see people trying to do that.
It's comfortable, isn't it?
It's just comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not fishing, you know, if I was to fish, you see a lot fishing like past the pole, And if the wind blows and stuff like that, it's hard
so
to control.
Just demonstrate that again, to show what not to do.
Is to having your float too far past the end of your pole.
Yeah.
So it's best just to keep it underneath the pole tip, so you can control it in the wind and everything. You can strike when you need to. And I've got that little tape mark there because I know where my ground bait is in that way. Some of the sections you might plumb up and it's quite deep closer in, so you could just use the top 2 sections and you wouldn't need this. This where this is, it's a bit shallow close in there, so that's why I've just put that extra piece on.
Now sometimes the float doesn't always
go
right down. Can that be what you call a bite on the drop?
Yeah, what can happen, there is quite a lot of tiny fish here as well.
Yeah.
And they can hold the last shot up, so that's why there's more bristle sticking out.
Got you.
Yeah.
I talked earlier about the World Championship Challenge. Yeah. Now the greatest angler that's ever represented England in fishing in the World Championships is a man called Alan Scutthorne. And I say he's the greatest on the basis that he's been 5 times world champion, which is 1 more time than the great Bob Nudd won the World Championships. And he's won the World Championships more times than anybody else in history. So for that reason, I don't think you can argue that he's the greatest angler that's probably ever lived. Yeah. Now here's a challenge. Could you catch as many fish as a world champion? Well, about 4 years ago, Alan came to the 2017 Division 1 National. He drew a peg between Bridge 50 and Bridge 51, which is where the junior match is to be held in the 2021 celebration. And he caught 970 grams in 5 hours. So, if you're fishing for 3 hours and you could catch 600 grams, then you would have caught a higher weight of fish per hour than the great man himself. And if you're fishing in the junior match for 4 hours and you can catch 800 grams of fish, then you would have caught more fish pro rata than the great man himself. So why not set yourself a world champion challenge and see if you can equal or even beat that great man? This looks like a better fish, Simon.
A bit better, nice soft elastic again and doing its trick, isn't it?
Could it be a perch?
Little skimmer again,
I
think.
Yeah. I would have netted there.
Yeah, I probably should have done really.
You should have done.
Yeah.
You're not setting the best example here.
Nice little hybrid again.
Nice little 2 ounce roach bream hybrid.
Yeah.
I'll make a prediction, Simon, that this year a girl will actually win one of the championships.
Right.
We had a runner-up last year.
Yeah.
And the year before, Lauren Stevens came 3rd. So it's only a matter of time before the girls win this big event.
It's good to see that there's lots of them on it, isn't it? It's
about 25% of the entries are from young ladies. So very encouraging. And that's the smallest fish of the day, and it's fell off.
Yeah.
So you're still on your size 20, and
still
you're still
on
on a pinky.
yeah, still ticking over nicely. We've not put any more. We put 1 more ball in, so we're not overfeeding or anything like that. So
no,
we're just ticking over nicely.
Because is the idea to hopefully be catching fish steadily for the whole length of the match?
Yeah. Obviously, after 90 minutes, you could fish further out if you wanted to. But if you're catching fish doing this, there's no point moving, is there?
No.
You might as well just carry on like this. You can feed further out and fish further out after 90 minutes. But obviously, a lot of the people that come are beginners and they've only got the short pole. So there's nothing wrong at all with just fishing close in all day, is there?
Absolutely not.
Mr. Bite then looking at you.
Yeah. There's a tip for you. Never look at other people, look at your float. And even Simon has broken his own rule there.
Yeah, so we're just lowering that bait in over the bait.
That was a very delicate
I
little
think
dip
it's one of those little tiny fish, perhaps.
Yeah.
Oh no, a bit bigger one.
Show us how to use the landing net again.
Yeah, can do then.
Yeah.
So we're netting him out of the way. We're not netting him.
How do you use the net? You put the tip under the water.
So we're not netting him right where we're fishing, we're just gliding it out the way. Nice little skimmer, that.
With some slime on the line,
With some slime
I see.
on the line, so yeah, it's best to get rid of that. So I just...
Yeah.
That's it.
Lovely.
Nice little skimmer,
into the net, nice and gently into the net.
Yeah.
Double check that slime on the line.
Yes, I'm just taking my time just to get rid of that.
Yeah, don't rush too much, otherwise you'll snap your hook length.
Yeah.
One of the things I've learnt from you, Simon, it's a serious point for any parent watching this who perhaps, you know, haven't got a lot of money to spare.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the tackle that's in the water that seems to be the most vital to catching the fish.
Yeah.
The hook, the float, the line, the business end, if you like.
Yeah.
It's not the £5,000 pole or the £1,000 seat box, and I exaggerate for effect, because they're not the things that actually catch you the fish. It's the business end.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as you've got, you know, the right hooks, that's, you know, that's the most important thing. You got the right. If you've got a great big hook and you're putting a pinky on and it's bursting, and you won't get as many bites as you will with a small hook.
No, if any.
Yeah. So. And
if you haven't got a seat box, you could even turn a bucket like this, upside down, and you could sit on that quite comfortably.
Like I was this morning, John, wasn't I?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Would you recommend that people actually practice?
Definitely,
even if they don't come up to the Shropshire Union or the Trenton Mersey or wherever the celebration happens to be?
Yeah.
You know, can they use these techniques on their own?
Yeah, definitely. It gives you a good chance then to check that your gear's nice, you know, and right for the job. You know, if you go somewhere and your elastic's not coming out, you know, then you can, I need to sort that elastic so it's a smaller grade elastic and it's softer.
Yeah.
You know, so if you can find out that your stuff's not quite right before the September date, it's the best time to find out before, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What would you say from previous national celebrations, Simon, were the sort of 2 or 3 things which people didn't always get right? You know, the mistakes they made.
Probably fishing too far out.
Yeah.
So obviously this year with that 3 metre thing, obviously people will only fish 3 metres for the first hour and a half, won't they?
Yeah.
So definitely fishing a bit too far out.
Yeah.
Not having the right hooks.
Yeah.
And some people didn't bring any ground bait with them, like, so.
Yeah.
It's all, you know, you've got to have some ground bait there to keep them. So.
If you had to make the choice of underfeeding or overfeeding,
yeah, you just wouldn't
would you
underfeed really. Yeah, if you were to chuck in handfuls of pinkies,
what would happen if you did?
You might get an initial fish all in one go, and then your bites would dry up
because the fish are full of food.
Yeah, we're just teasing them along. We're chucking in
anymore.
2 at a time. We're just creating a bit of a demand, really.
Yeah.
You know, we're not chucking in loads and loads of bait. You know, we've only put 3 balls in. We put 2 at the start, haven't we? We've only put 1 since.
Yeah.
But there's lots of bite, and they're all on that. You know, all on that one. So if you're not getting any bites, and you think, God, my bites are right, just make sure that you're fishing right where your ground bait was.
Yeah. That's a really good tip. Yeah. Yeah. Other things you could do, you mentioned before, putting a single squat on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving down from a 20 to a 22.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Moving your shot.
A lot of gudgeon there, nice gudgeon as well, aren't they? Nice size, aren't they?
I do hope that every participant in the 2021 national celebrations is able to catch a gudgeon and become, just like Motty, a gudgeon mug holder.
We're just ticking over nice, and we're not putting loads of bait in, we're just chucking an odd pinky in.
One of the things we'll do as a special bonus, Simon, in a minute, is to illustrate how you can catch perhaps a bonus perch with what we call chopped worm.
Yeah.
And we'll do that in a minute.
Yeah, we will.
Because sometimes perch can move into the peg and the skimmers and the roach and the gudgeon disappear.
Yeah, or it could be that, you know, you've caught as many small fish as you're going to catch. So,
Yeah.
you know, for the last hour, you might want to try and target a big fish.
Yes.
If it's slowed down, nothing's happening. So we can show everybody how we could, and what tackle we'll use, catching a bit bigger fish.
Well, we'll do that either in a minute or as a bonus video.
What foul look that was, you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure it was.
And there was, what is it, slime on the line, so that tells us that was a skimmer braid.
And, yeah.
Sometimes, with the best will in the world, eventually the small fish bites dry up. So Simon, have you got any tips for trying to catch a bonus perch or something like that?
Yeah, the bites have gone a bit funny on us.
Yeah.
So obviously we're on that theme of, we're still in that first hour and a half.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, well, we'll perhaps put a few worms in. Obviously we can't go into the middle of the canal yet.
Yeah.
Because on that rule. But I've got quite a bigger hook, like an 18 hook.
Okay.
It's almost like a 16, that is. It's
might
quite a
be
big
a 16
hook.
or an 18. And what about your line?
Line's
and your
a bit thicker as well.
Yeah.
Float's the same float, actually, because we're on that same depth.
And your bait is?
Just a piece of worm. I'm just going to go in with a piece of worm.
Yeah, which you can get out of a compost heap or from a shop.
There, look, yeah.
Yeah. Now, of course, this isn't guaranteed, is it, Simon?
No, not at all, no.
You know, this is what you call bonus fish territory. So not everybody that tries this will be successful.
No, and, you know, if you were to start on this and it didn't work, it's a bit of a gamble to take on the day, isn't it?
It's not a gamble that you should be taking.
No, whereas we know on the day if we fish with groundbait and pinkies, we're almost guaranteed a few bites. But worm fishing can be very instant. It can be, so once you put your worms in, it can be sort of, is that a bite already, John, already?
So where did you say you'd hooked it, Simon?
Just hooked it on the end of the worm like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Just a piece of worm like that.
Yeah. Now I guess you need to be a bit more patient.
Yeah, we're going to get less bites doing this.
Yeah.
But it can be a good way to catch a bonus fish, especially if it's all dried up and we're not getting as many bites as we were before.
So you may, if you haven't had a bite for say 15 minutes, is that when you'd consider going on that method?
Yeah, 15 to 20, taking into account the boat traffic and stuff like that, you know, and I there's a bit more line on the bottom as well. I've gone over depth by a bit more as well. Okay,
so you're actually slightly over depth rather than on depth.
Yeah, I've chopped a few worms up and I've potted the worms in.
Yeah.
But not too much, because perch can be very greedy. They can eat all the worms that are, you know, they can eat everything. With perch sometimes it's best to put a little bit in to catch 3 or 4 and then a little bit more to catch 3 or 4 more.
So in the first 90 minutes, you can do this on your 3 metre line.
On my 3 metre line, yeah.
If that 3 metre line has dried up.
Yeah.
After 90 minutes, where would you choose to do it then as an option?
Probably down the middle of the canal. So I'd fish with a deeper rig again. Of course, you can get these rigs ready before the start. You can plumb up and everything ready. And I'd have a bit heavier float and a bit, you know, like a big hook again. And I'd fish down the middle where the boats are, in the deepest water.
So about 6 metres?
About 6 metres, yeah. Obviously, if you've quite experienced and you want to fish a bit, is it 11 metre limit on the pole?
11 metre, I think, is the limit. I'd have to check that myself. Yeah,
what you could do, you could fish with groundbait and pinkies again. So you could copy what you've done on the inside, on the far side. So you could do that, but you know, if you've got limited tackle again, you could either do this close in, or like John says, you could do it down the middle of the canal, because there is some big fish down here in the middle of the canal. But I say, you can instantly see there's nowhere near as many bites as we had before. We've just had an odd indication.
Would things like gudgeon and bream
bream sometimes would, yeah. Perch, definitely. Perch like worms. Gudgeon, not so much.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're being quite selective. You're fishing for bigger fish. This is where it's a bit risky doing this at the start, because it never seems to be as good if you were to put worms in and then you ground bait.
That would not work.
It doesn't seem to work so well.
Yeah. There's another species of fish, which if you catch one, is probably not very good news, and that's called the daddy ruff.
Daddy ruff, yeah.
Sometimes called the pope.
What's the bite? So let it go So that's a bigger fish again. Did you notice I let that go when the float went? I've waited before I've struck. That's purely because if it's perch, it's best, to a bigger bait as well. Let them to take the bait. Look, and a nice perch.
What would that go, Simon? 3 ounces, 4 ounces?
3 or 4 ounces. Yeah. That's it there. Look, nice perch, nice bonus fish. And I don't know why always change my worm when I've had a perch. I don't know why. I think I read in an article years ago, and it's just something that sticks in your mind, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Never a bad thing, is it, to change the bait?
No. So just broke it off there. But
hooked on the end, on the size, did we say 16 or 18?
16, that is, yeah. You need a bigger hook, because if you were to use the smaller hook, it wouldn't be in proportion with the bait. So you do need another rig, or if you've only got the one rig, there's nothing wrong with bringing some hook lengths that have got bigger hooks on and thicker line and swapping the hook over.
That would make sense.
Yeah, so if you've only got the one rig with you, or the one spare kit with you, or you can get that worm ring ready, before the start and put it back on the winder again, can't you?
Yeah. Now you've left the float for a long time,
Yeah,
Simon.
that one just dipped then. Typical perch bite, that is.
So you're waiting and waiting and waiting.
And I missed that one.
But the first one,
yeah,
you've obviously hooked, and you waited the same length of time.
Yeah, that's perch all over for you, that is. Sometimes they don't take it quite right, and incidentally, they've got a little bit more bristle sticking up on the float that I'm using a worm with, just so I'm not striking too early. If you strike too early with perch, they've sometimes not got the bait completely in the mouths, as we just found then. But we've not fed a lot of worm, but I think on that junior chap, I wouldn't feed any worms at the start. I think I'd put my ground bait in to be safe, do you know what I mean?
Yes, as we said earlier.
Yeah,
yes.
And then go to worms.
Only after, if you've not had a bite for 15 or 20 minutes, should you consider this method.
Yeah.
Because then, if this doesn't work either, it's going to be quite a challenge then, isn't it?
Yeah, like on some stretches it is a bit deeper close in.
Yeah.
So you could do it right next to the bank with worms.
Yes. That's an interesting tip. I've seen people, particularly on the Llangollen Canal, catch fish right next to the sheep piles.
Yeah, like the next stretch that way is a bit deeper close in.
Yeah.
So you could put some worms close, right close in.
Yes, like on a 1 metre line.
Yeah,
almost.
that's it. But you notice, John, there's a lot less bites, isn't there?
Yes. Yes, there is. And you're not putting the rig in and out every few seconds.
Being a bit more patient. And
yeah.
But if we'd have done this at the start, I think it would have been a bit too risky.
Yeah. And do you find, Simon, that if you haven't had a bite on this method within, say, 10 or 15 minutes, you're probably not going to?
A lot of the time, yeah, sometimes, yeah. It can be quite instant, especially with the perch. If you've got the tackle to do it, you could do this down the middle of the canal.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people will be buying 6 and 7 metre take-apart poles.
Yeah.
So with a 6 metre take-apart pole, you could use it,
could do it,
at the full length as an option.
Yeah.
So you could try it on the 3 metre line, and again a bit later in the match on the 6 metre line.
Yeah. And with perch, sometimes you can twitch the bait as well.
Just explain what you mean by twitch the bait.
Well, they love a bit of movement, perch.
You think it makes them angry?
Definitely. Well, sometimes I do a lot of lure fishing after Christmas on the canals, and twitching these lures about and jigs and stuff like that, and it definitely helps. They like a bit of movement sometimes.
Yeah.
But there's a lot less bites, John. We've only had 2 bites, haven't we, doing this?
Yes.
So it would have been a bit risky to do at the start, I think.
And okay, your perch was what, 3 or 4 ounces?
Yeah.
But you may have caught 4 gudgeon and 5 or 6 roach during that time. So obviously my advice would be to keep the small fish coming for as long as you possibly can. Do you agree with that?
Definitely, yeah. Like it might dry up on you on the last hour, and
then you've still got your chop worm line.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. If anybody's got any questions about what they've watched in this video, things they don't understand, would like some further advice on, by all means, contact us by several ways. You can email us at fisheries@canalrivertrust.org.uk. You can email us also at lets.fish@canalrivertrust.org.uk. canal.org.uk. You can message us and follow us on the Canal and River Trust Angling Facebook page. Don't forget that anybody who enters the Commonwealth Games 2022 celebrations or the National Celebration of Young People in Fishing are automatically entitled to a free 2-hour development session so you can practice and learn some of the things that Simon's been discussing in this video.
Better fish again, John, I think.
Yes. A double bonus, Simon.
Yeah.
You know you're having a good day. And you haven't landed it yet.
Might be a perch again, I think.
I think so.
Yeah. It's a nice bonus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you landed that in the national celebration, wouldn't you have a smile on your face?
Perfect. No.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed watching Simon demonstrate some of the canal fishing techniques that you yourself can come along and use, hopefully successfully, at the upcoming National Celebration of Young People and at the Commonwealth Games celebration in 2022. I look forward to meeting you in person then. Good luck if you do come and join us. Thank you.